Rain of Troy Hotline. Alicia, Michael, what's going on?
We know you have takes. We have takes.
I'm actually surprised that your Rant Line, Rave Line, whatever, isn't completely full.
Why can't we just win a game?
Can I blame Michael Castillo for this?
Can I blame Bob Connolly for this?
Could I put on a zebra shirt and just go out there? Scratch, claw, up against the wall. Can't explain it what I'm feeling right now, guys. I can't believe it. Let's open up that race line. Woohoo! Oh, I can't believe USC is 7-5 again. Oh no!
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Rant Line Radio, episode 528. Coming to you on Wednesday, January 3rd. It is a new year, but we are going to look back at last year, this past season, 2023, particularly the Rose Bowl. Not the Rose Bowl, the Holiday Bowl. Basically the Rose Bowl, SC winning a bowl game. That's just like a Rose Bowl, right?
It's a bowl game in California.
Yeah, that's the same thing. It used to be the Poinsettia Bowl. That was like a red flower.
Yeah.
Practically, also in San Diego. So practically the Rose Bowl. It's all the same thing. USC getting the big win over the Louisville Cardinals. We're going to talk about that. Look back at over-under. Crown our champion for over-under. Talk about the transfer portal and so much more here on this episode. As always, you can follow us on Twitter, Rant of Troy, like us on Facebook, facebook.com/Rant of Troy. Be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Overcast, Spotify, wherever you can find a podcast. We are there. Email address, rantoftroy@fanside.com, and our phone number, 818-643-7227, Second Whisper and Show. I'm your host, Michael Castillo, journalist, my co-host here in the Rant Troy studio in a new year. Alicia Dertol.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Ron Murdy in the chat says, Happy New Year, Alicia and Michael. Happy New Year to you, too.
Yes.
Happy New Year to everybody joining us. What's your New Year's resolution?
My New Year's resolution is to actually have a New Year's resolution and to do New Year's resolution-y type things, because I definitely didn't do that last year. And as much as New Year's resolutions are maybe a trap, they're probably a good thing. They're like, I think they're a good thing to try to figure out, to reflect and think about the things that you need to get better about, and at least consciously put it out into the universe that you're even thinking about doing those things. So I have a bunch of New Year's resolutions. I was just thinking about committing to doing closing duties a little bit more regularly, which is the act of acting like your home is a like a shop that you have to close up for the night.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's bad news for you.
No. Does that mean we gotta do recovery every night?
Yeah, that's exactly. We gotta do zoning and recovery and all that kind of stuff.
No, I left retail for a purpose. No, hell no. No thanks. Yeah. My New Year's resolution is I don't have one. I don't know.
Gotta figure one out.
I never know. Like all the other ones are, I'm gonna eat better. I'm gonna go to the gym. Like, yeah, but like I shouldn't need a New Year's resolution for those things. You know what I mean? Like,
but that's what I'm saying is that, like, yeah, they're a bit of a trap. Yeah, they sort of all fall away or whatever. But it's good to think about the things that you should be doing all the time, anyways. So.
Right. Yeah.
Now is as good a time to start doing anything as ever.
Yeah, for sure. Which means it's the perfect time to start over at DraftKings, because Trojan fans, if you heard about DraftKings, they're offering a new fantastic sign up for new users, especially this week. You can place a $5 bet and get anything. $5 bet on anything and instantly claim $150 in bonus bets. Go put $5 down on Michael Penix doing something amazing in the national championship game against Michigan, and you get $150 back in instant bonus bets. You'll instantly be rewarded with no sweat single game parlay every single day when you opt in. The best part is when you receive those both awards for even if your first bet loses. And when you join DraftKings, make sure to sign up with our code Rant of Troy. Using our code Rant of Troy not only gets you the great bonuses, but directly supports this very podcast. So if you've been setting up for DraftKings, make sure you use the code Reign of Troy to maximize your first bets and parlays. The offer, of course, only available to new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly and check the episode description for the full terms of the offer to see if you qualify. Alicia, DraftKings is a royal name, I would say. But I would also say that the Rose Bowl, we were talking about the Rose Bowl earlier, sort of the royalty of bowl games. West Texas Mike in the chat says, speaking of the Rose Bowl, I'm going to say it. Michael is right. Trojan versus the Bruins every year at the Rose Bowl, split at 50-50 like Texas and OU. I'm emailing Jen Cohen. It would be great, wouldn't it?
It would be great, but also why take away the game from the Coliseum?
Well, I mean, this is the interesting thing is like, historically speaking, if you were going to make the SC UCLA game a neutral site game, realistically, if that happened, it would be at SoFi.
Which would be the worst possible thing they could do.
Worst thing they could do, yes. Historically, it would be at the Coliseum, which why would SC agree to that? And then, but in terms of atmosphere and true neutral siteness and all those kind of things, it would be the Rose Bowl, but the Rose Bowl sort of has the least grounds for it other than like, it would be cool. Wouldn't it be cool if?
Right.
And the Rose Bowl never does anything because it would be cool if, because God forbid the neighbors have to deal with another night of something going on there.
Yeah. But also, what's not cool about the Coliseum?
I agree.
You do the neutral site thing if it's perfectly split between two fan bases that are further away from each other, or you don't have.
Which, by the way, I the more I think about it, I want to make it my mission. I am going to run for office before 2028. I want to be the USC president. I'm not qualified. I don't think. I'm pretty sure I'm not. I do know the fight song, so that might help me. But I want to run on one ground and one ground only. I want the 2028 season for SC to play at the Rose Bowl. That's all I want.
Good luck with that pipe dream.
That's all I want.
Good.
SC can't play at the Coliseum because of the Olympics. Yeah, okay, well then.
Good luck with the city of Pasadena.
I know
that pipe dream.
I know, but like, it's there's no better option.
The reason he brings this up, for those who don't know, is that the Olympics will be forcing USC out of the Coliseum first.
Everything that we've read, the Coliseum will be unusable for 6 months before and after the Olympics, because they're essentially, so it's very, very, very fascinating how the Coliseum is going to be used. Obviously, when the Raiders came down in 94, no, they left in 94. When the Coliseum had the renovations to try to keep the Raiders in like 93, 94, whatever the hell it was, they took out the track at the Coliseum, right? So like they moved the floor in the Coliseum lower. They added rows to the bottom of the Coliseum. What it means is there's no room for a track at the Coliseum. Well, how are they going to host the Olympics, you ask? They're going to raise the surface. They are going to create a second floor of the Coliseum, and the floor is going to be 2 levels. So there's going to be a subfloor. There's going to be something like 20, 30 feet suspended from the floor of the Coliseum now, which will cover several rows at the bottom of the Coliseum. And by doing this, they'll create a subfloor where like they're going to have like this elevator. So where all the locker rooms and stuff are going to be on that ground floor, and there will be an elevator that will move up and down so the athletes can go up and down and whatnot. But
it's a major construction.
It's a major construction thing, and then they're able to put the track there on this new subfloor that they're going to put in the Coliseum. It's going to be like an engineering marvel that they're going to be able to construct. Much cheaper than building a full new stadium with the track in it, right?
Yeah.
But this means that the Trojans cannot play at the Coliseum. I guess theoretically they could if they wanted to play with the track there, but they surely wouldn't. And so they got to go somewhere. I've always sort of assumed it's going to end up being SoFi, but I think there's better options than SoFi. I think it'd be better if they played at the little rinky-dink sports arena, MLS stadium. I think that would be better.
Somehow I doubt they're going to do that.
I don't believe they would do that, but I think that would be better. And the Rose Bowl better.
As I said, the good luck with that particular platform of
Ron Murdy says 2028 is a long way off. It feels like it, but you want to know what's even more depressing? 2028, as far back as 2020.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Equidistant. We're equidistant to 2028 as we were to the start of COVID. Oh my jeez.
That's exactly that.
Between that and turning 35 this year, there's nothing more depressing than that.
The struggle.
All right, let's start with the news, shall we? All right, before we get to talking about the Holiday Bowl, want to talk about the transfer portal, the old transfer portal. USC is losing 2 more guys to the transfer portal. Dorian Singer, the Arizona transfer who came in last year, a year ago, 12 months ago. This was the biggest get that USC could have gotten. A huge pickup for the Trojans. One that we thought was going to be massive, especially after the loss of Jordan Addison, the Biletnikoff winner at Pitt, who then transferred to SC and had a great 1 year at USC back in 2022. Dorian Singer, first team All Pac-12 in 2022, caught over 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns for the Wildcats. Oh, he's going to fit into the Lincoln Riley offense beautifully, right? No. 24 catches, 289 yards, 3 touchdowns for Dorian Singer this past season. He's moving on now, going into the transfer portal. The transfer portal officially closes, by the way, on January 4th.
Sorry, that's a typo. It closed on January 2nd.
Oh, January 2nd. So no more exits until after spring camp, but Singer and the other guy we're going to talk about are in there. The other guy being Andres DeWerk, offensive lineman from the 2020 class out of Los Gatos High in San Jose.
Yeah, Andres DeWerk was a developmental prospect that just never came through. So that's not a terrible surprise to see him head out, and you got to just sort of wish him the best of luck wherever he lands. Dorian Singer is a transfer that opens up because the NCAA was forced to allow unlimited transfers without having to sit out. At least for the time being, that's going to be the policy while they work out the legality of everything. So Dorian Singer could make another transfer and try to restart his career elsewhere. It's a bummer because, like you said, it felt like he could come in and be a number 1 guy. It felt like there was no reason to expect him to come in and not do what he did at Arizona. But for whatever reason, it never worked. It did not feel like it worked at any point. He was not unreliable in terms of catching the ball. I saw a stat saying that he didn't have any drops this year, but he was just not effective. He didn't seem to have a rapport with Caleb Williams. It didn't seem like he had a rapport with Miller Moss in the Holiday Bowl, which he played in. He didn't seem to elevate the offense in any way, and it's just one of those ones where this is a really good example of how success in college football, yes, it's about talent, but it's also really, really, really about fit and being in the right place to maximize what it is that you do. And it just didn't feel like Dorian Singer fit what USC wanted to do in their offense. Didn't necessarily fit whether it was the scheme or the skill set or having players who maybe did did a thing better than him or more effectively than him or anything like that. So yeah, it's a bummer to see him go, but at the same time, you can't blame him for leaving. He just didn't.
Yeah,
He didn't make his mark, and going forward, you have to look at what the receivers did in the Holiday Bowl, and certainly told him something about what the future of USC's wide receiving core looks like, and he didn't look like he was going to be a huge factor in it.
Yeah, I think Singer I thought was going to be someone who was going to be a superstar in this offense, and then all of a sudden his transfer sort of threw a spanner in the works in the way you wouldn't expect, in which it didn't work, right? Like, yeah. I don't know. I don't quite understand. I think
I have a guess.
What's your guess?
My guess is that he was a very productive receiver in an offense where the quarterback very much trusted him to go up and catch 50-50 balls whenever possible. And in USC systems, certainly when Caleb Williams was running it, the idea of even throwing up a 50-50 ball was not something that Caleb seemed willing to do, and certainly not to Dorian Singer.
Yeah.
So Dorian Singer, it might be a situation where he couldn't create the kind of separation that was necessary for him to get the ball thrown his way.
Yeah.
And his best skill set is catching the ball without separation. So
I've just never heard of a jump ball merchant before.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
I don't know. It's just, it's the closest thing I have to a theory that it didn't feel like he ever created the kind of separation that would get him the ball consistently. And
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. The only comparison that's coming to mind for me is Katie Nixon. And that Katie Nixon was a guy who, at Colorado at one point had 50 catches and looked like someone who was really good in that Colorado offense.
A deep ball merchant and never got thrown the ball deep at USC.
And he caught 3 passes at USC in 2021.
Yeah. It happens.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. We'll see what happens with Singer. There's always the chance going into the portal doesn't mean anything, and they could come back. Dave P in the chat says, why is Lincoln Riley going after wide receivers? We already have a set group. Does he not know that we need offensive and defensive linemen, right? Didn't he say defense first right now? Yes, but also, like, I would just urge to wait to see what the end result of those things are. I think part of this comes up with SC did get an incoming transfer at receiver, Jaden Richardson, which we're going to talk about in a second here. But I think there's sometimes you end up being able to land things at different paces, right?
I think it's madness to say USC doesn't need new wide receivers. I think that is absolute madness. USC does not have any depth at wide receiver going into this year.
Yeah.
Yes, you feel really good about Jacoby Lane and Deuce Robinson and Zachariah Branch, and you hope to hold on to Kyron Hudson, but you need a 2 or 3 deep at wide receiver, and USC does not have a 2 deep at wide receiver at this point. If they're intending to run 4 or 5 wide receiver sets at any point, they need bodies. Like, there are no, you really like the dudes that are in there, but you also can't sit on your hands and say, well, we like the 4 guys that we have, so we're good at wide receiver. No, you have to keep plugging away. And especially, this is the other thing at receiver. I think if you are USC, receiver is a very easy position to fill. Like, the competition that number one, there are a bajillion receivers out there to add. So competition for each individual receiver is not going to be as fierce as any offensive lineman that enters the portal. Any defensive lineman that enters the portal is going to be a ridiculous amount of competition. Wide receivers, there's a million of them. You can find them anywhere. You don't have to, you're not, by recruiting wide receivers, you're not neglecting the offensive line or defensive line. Like, it's not a zero-sum game. If you fail to get offensive and defensive linemen this year in the portal, it's not because you had somebody, Dennis Simmons, take the time to talk to Jaden Richardson or as we're going to talk about in a little bit, like Silas Bolden or whatever. That's that's not how it works. These aren't recruiting tokens in EA EA Sports where you only have 500 points that you can use. You need to be restocking this receiver room,
Right.
especially if you can find some veteran guys to balance out the young guys that you have coming through. You need as many dudes who can catch the ball as possible. I say go for it.
Yeah, you look at USC's receiver room. There were 8 different USC receivers who caught double-digit passes this past season. 8. Of those 8, 5 are gone. Taj Washington gone to the NFL. Brendan Rice gone to the NFL. Mario Williams gone to the transfer portal. Dorian Singer gone to the transfer portal. Michael Jackson III gone to the transfer portal. And of the dudes who are coming back, you got Kyron Hudson, who's been a depth guy the whole time he's been at SC, right? You got Zachariah Branch, who was a true freshman, and I think he's a hell of a talent, but him being a receiver is probably not his biggest forte at the moment. He's still got to develop being a receiver. His biggest impact is just being a guy in space with the ball in his hands, right? Like he's still got to develop as a receiver. And then the other one is Deuce Robinson, who is a tight end.
Who needs to concentrate on catching
receiver
football.
like combo that is still figuring stuff out. So there's no finished product at receiver. So yeah, absolutely, it's a place that you've got to go and prioritize dudes there, because the other options are Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon, who were true freshmen this past season as well. So let's talk about the new transfer in Jaden Richardson out of Tufts. The new pipeline to USC is D3 Tufts out of the Boston area. Richardson originally from San Mateo, California, home of Tom Brady.
I was gonna say that, and then I talked myself out.
6'2", 210. He was the New England Small College Athletic Conference co-offensive player of the year. That is a mouthful and a half.
I was gonna write NESCAC, but I had to look up what that meant.
That sounds like some sort of like video game system or something. Do you have an NESCAC? Do you have Pokemon Blue on that thing? Yeah. Jaden Richardson, 20 career touchdowns this past season, 46 catches, 830 yards, 13 touchdowns in 9 games. For the Jumbos, the Tufts Jumbos. Is that a hell of a name?
It's a wonderful name.
It's great. It's wonderful. Also, I looked up Tufts. Alicia, can you name a Tufts alum?
I'm gonna guess. I'm sure there's politicians out there who went to Tufts. It's in Massachusetts, so
there were. I mostly went after the names that I knew.
Okay.
The pride of Torrance, the true pride of Torrance, Michelle Kwan.
Hey, that's cool.
U.S. Olympian. Meredith Vieira, where does she rank on your View hosts power rankings?
She's fine. She's
I think that's enough. A good way of she's all right. Yeah. Star Jones, I would probably put higher. Yeah. Actors Peter Gallagher, Oliver Platt, and Hank Azaria also went to Tufts. So there you go. All right. I think it's a seemingly a good. It's hard to say, right?
Okay.
About a D3 receiver, but we just talked about SC needs bodies there. He certainly excelled in the level that he was at. If he was under recruited, then maybe it's a bright starlet to go get.
It's impossible to evaluate this. He was extremely successful at the level that he was at, extremely productive, an All-American level, all conference level player.
Mm-hmm.
He's a veteran. He's an older guy. He's fully developed, and he wants to prove himself. And so he's going to come to USC and prove himself one way or the other.
Yeah.
You don't see USC take a flyer on this profile of athlete, of this profile very often. The fact that they are maybe tells us that that they see something in him. The profile looks right, the size looks right, the stats, not the stats, the highlights look good for knowing the level of competition that they are. We're not sure we're not sure that's going to be anything that's do we know if he's a starting caliber player for USC? I don't know, but you bring him in, you give him a chance, and you see what he does. So no harm, no foul as far as I'm concerned on the transfer. But this isn't the transfer you get like super excited for, because
I was thinking about it. That you look at SC's transfers: Nate Clifton from Vandy, Jaden Richardson from Tufts, who is a 3-star transfer according to 24/7 Sports. So D3, but that doesn't mean that like he's
like I said, like people
here.
who evaluate talent say he has talent. Like that doesn't mean that. Well, we thought Dorian Singer would translate, and he didn't. And Taj Washington came from Memphis and did just fine at USC. So it's difficult to say.
Lofa Tatupu came from the FCS level. Maine Black Bears. But there was also the guy from Penn that SC put out the first transfer portal offer. So like Penn, Vandy, Tufts. Is SC Stanford all of a sudden? It's funny, right? Like
they have said that they're trying to find guys who are culture fits and who want to be at USC. So these guys are culture fits and want to be at USC.
We will see how it goes. Speaking of culture fits, transfer rumor potential targets. One of those is included to be a North Dakota State defensive lineman, Javier DeRitt. Played for Matt Entz, USC's linebacker coach at North Dakota State when he was the head coach of North Dakota State. The Bison, 6'2", 280 pounds, 31 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks in 15 games for the Bison in 2023. At 7 tackles for loss a year ago. If Entz likes the guy, I think that seems to make sense, but seems to be in line with the culture fit thing, especially if Entz has an eye there. And any thoughts?
Yeah, that feels like USC will have an edge in this recruitment, obviously, with the personal relationship between those two. I like the idea of USC bringing in somebody who is familiar with Matt Entz, who he can vouch for in terms of, again, culture fit, in terms of the right kind of competitive spirit, and maybe that he sees as somebody who has the potential to play at the upper level. Another guy that if USC landed him, they're not the home run, 5-star transfer additions, but these are we talk about like the brick and mortar kind of thing. These are potential mortar guys that you have to fit in. And there's, some talk about like how, what is USC targeting in the portal and all of that kind of stuff. Like USC had 19 dudes transfer. It has 19 dudes transferring out. Wouldn't be surprised if more guys transfer out after the spring. There's room to add guys, especially in positions of need where you can have a vouch for the culture fit. So I'm on board with looking at these guys. You can't get these level of guys, but
the question is
look at them.
Yeah, the question is the size, 6'2", 280 for a defensive lineman. But
USC was starting dudes who were 270 at defensive tackle this year. So I don't know.
Again, 6 foot 280 at North Dakota State doesn't necessarily mean that's what he would be at SC.
Yeah.
Also doesn't necessarily mean that he would be a defensive lineman. Maybe he's coming over as an edge linebacker or something. I don't know. Who knows? We will see what happens with DeRitt and whether or not he's able to commit to the Trojans. Another guy SC's looking at is wide receiver Silas Bolden from Oregon State, originally from Rancho Cucamonga, 5'8", 157, slender dude, little guy, but 54 catches for the Beavs this past year, 746 yards, 5 touchdowns. Sure. Yeah. SC needs receivers.
Another guy with the local the Oregon State connection is obvious with the Mascarenas, with the Arnold brothers who are coming over on the defensive side of the ball. So this is not a surprise, not a surprise at all. It might just be an easy plug guy who has a lot of experience, who was productive at Power 5 level,
right?
And can come in and be a fit guy and be a slot guy for USC. Where again, I will continue to say USC likes where they're at receiver. That does not mean that they don't need a number of receivers to refill that room, because you do not want to walk into the 2024 season with 6 receivers on your roster.
Yes.
You need, especially in a high-powered offense like USC has, you need to have more dudes, and Silas Bolden is a dude. So, yeah.
He led Oregon State in receiving, and I think that anytime you can go out there and get a guy who led a
team in receiving,
top 20 team in receiving, I think that is a strong point, especially for an a wide receiver core that needs to be rebuilt, like we've talked about. Silas Bolden, USC has a history of getting transfers named Silas. This one would be an orange Silas instead of Silas red, but alas,
a little more Bolden.
Yeah. When I first saw this, I'm like, my brain went to Bubba Bolden.
Yes.
A
transfer out.
A transfer out of USC, for a completely different reason. The guy that SC has been looking at forever, Will Howard, quarterback, is now looking at Ohio State. So we're gonna have to wait and see when he makes a decision. Ohio State is interesting because they were hot on the tail for Cam Ward, who just decided, actually, I'm not going to come back to college. I'm going to go to the NFL.
He must have liked what he got on his evaluation, or didn't like what he got in terms of offers for NIL deals to go places. So, no, good for him.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Will Howard as he decides between Ohio State, SC, and whoever else he wants.
I will continue to say Miller Moss having that performance in the Holiday Bowl was amazing. It was wonderful. It complicates the hell out of USC's quarterback recruiting for the coming year. So this is gonna be fascinating. Meanwhile, Ohio State's bowl game showed that they desperately need a quarterback. So it's not surprising if Will Howard ends up there.
Yeah, we had a comment earlier, I think from was it Dave P, who mentioned that SC needs to recruit on the offensive line. Well, SC has offered LSU offensive tackle Lance Hurd 6'6", 340 from Monroe, Louisiana. Ever been to Monroe?
I've never been to Louisiana.
I've been to Monroe and Louisiana. And well, Monroe was in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Went to the Duck Dynasty store there.
Nice.
Yeah. Pretty nifty little place. He was ranked the number 15 recruit in 2023, a year ago. But he is leaving Baton Rouge. Would be interesting. 6'6", 340. That's the size you want on the offensive line. High-ranking prospects. Didn't work out in Baton Rouge for whatever reason. Wants a new start. Yes, absolutely. Those are the type of guys that I think you need to go after on the offensive line when you can. If SC isn't able to get the 5 stars out of high school, then get them in this instance, right?
Yes, this is the prize guy. This is the dude that if you're picking up if people want to whine about USC picking up Jaden Richardson or going after DeRitt or any of those guys, like if you land somebody like Lance Hurd, you can stop complaining about USC, focusing on wide receivers or whatever that you want to talk about. This is a 5-star offensive lineman, big time dude. Pro Football Focus rated him when he got playing time at LSU as a true freshman this year. He was the top graded freshman offensive lineman that saw action. He is massive. He is talented. he is the cream of the crop in terms of offensive linemen that USC could bring in and help transform the offensive line, get it in the right direction. So the offer is one step. I think there's talk about where is USC putting its NIL dollars. If you ever wanted to put on NIL dollars to work, this is the guy. It's my understanding that the issue at LSU is just he doesn't have a clear path to starting. They have tackles. I believe they're both coming back. And so he wants to come in and start. And USC, I think, could offer him a starting position straight up if he came to USC. So you got to put your NIL dollars to work. You got to get Josh Henson on the phone. You got to do whatever you can to get this level of prospect, because picking up someone like Lance Hurd makes up for the offensive lineman you lost in the class of 2024. Like, this is the kind of guy that you can't let go if you have a shot at him. So this is a big one.
I really think we got to stop calling NIL dollars nil, because you don't want to offer him nil, right? You offer him nil, you're probably not going to get him.
This dude's not going to get nil. I can tell you that. But
we'll see how it comes to be. 66340. Yeah, absolutely.
See, this is the thing is when it comes to the transfer portal, where you hit big, I think you can hit big with veteran guys at specific positions, at more of the skill positions. When it comes to recruiting the offensive line, I'm becoming a big believer in find the young, big, talented dudes who want to start right away but can't at bigger programs, and get them in for the love of God. Because as I've talked about before, bringing in offensive line transfers, you can only get away with so many to start immediately if they're sort of veteran grad transfers. The chemistry doesn't always work. The plug and play doesn't really seem to work all that reliably. But if you can get a dude who is coming off of his true freshman season, who still has 3 years of eligibility left, who looks like they might be ready to play right now and just need to continue to develop, this is the profile of player you have to be able to land in the portal if you're going to run the sort of recruiting game the way that USC has been running it. So that's big. And Dave P in the chat says he's not good enough at LSU. How's he good enough at USC? LSU does not want to lose this kid. LSU does not want to lose this kid. The timing for LSU is wrong. That's the only thing about it.
Yeah,
LSU's
he's
not
going
pushing
into
this
his
kid
true
out.
sophomore season.
It's the same thing that happened with Bear Alexander at Georgia. Georgia didn't want to lose Bear Alexander. The timing didn't work out for Georgia and Bear Alexander. He wanted to be the man right away, and USC can benefit from that. Yeah.
All right. Let's get to talking about the Holiday Bowl. USC big winners over Louisville, 42-28 in the Holiday Bowl. Let's go over some thoughts. You've had a week to think about it. Where are you at on the Holiday Bowl? USC's win.
Where am I at the Holiday Bowl? The Holiday Bowl was very fun. It was refreshing from a USC perspective.
Yeah.
The more stats I sort of see come out of it, the more I think about it, the more it kind of makes me angry.
Uh-oh.
Pessimistic Alicia is out in full force. No, it's not. It's actually the reverse. It's actually optimistic Alicia, because Fight on Rusty tweeted, USC had the most players in all of college football with an 80 or better tackle grade in their bowl game. Jalen Smith, Anthony Beavers, Bryson Shaw, Jacoby Covington, Jamil Muhammad, and Eric Gentry all were above 80. Tackling was a huge issue for USC throughout the year. Tackling was a major, major problem, including 4 guys like Bryson Shaw and Jamil Muhammad and Eric Gentry. And yet, in the bowl, suddenly they can tackle. So it's not that the players on the field, this is the thing I've been saying for the last couple of years. It's not that the players on the field were all completely unplayable, not worthy of playing at USC level or even Pac-12 level or anything like that. It's that they were so completely mismanaged and miscoached and misschemed and ill prepared that each individual on USC's defense was worse. The sum of the parts was worse than the value of each individual player. And the Holiday Bowl pretty much just goes out to prove it. There were certainly guys on the field who didn't have who, in my opinion, should not have been playing at USC, let alone starting at USC. And those individual personnel decisions were head scratchers. But aside from those personnel decisions, it felt like USC was just not getting what they could have out of any of the individuals that are out there. And we saw closer to, and that was still a flawed defensive performance, but we saw closer to what a even just middle of the road coaching job could have done with the talent that USC had out on the field.
Yeah.
We also saw, guys up front like Keon Bars and why am I forgetting his name right now? The Purdue transfer,
Sullivan,
Jack Sullivan, and those guys. We just saw them get more playing time and
so
be present out there in ways that, like, I don't know that those guys fixed the problem for USC, but it didn't make sense that they weren't out there half of the time.
But I don't think that I don't think that all this stuff makes sense either, because I saw a lot of people crediting Taylor Mays for the tackling ability, especially in the secondary. I understand why,
which is ironic.
but like I need to make it make sense to me, because it's not like they were running a completely different defense. They were still running the same scheme that Alex Grinch installed at USC a year ago. It's not like you could just completely go in there and reteach the fundamentals to all these people, and then at that point, then why weren't most of the coaches that were already on staff were like, everybody that was coaching the team was already on staff, even if they weren't in the same exact role, right? Like, so why weren't they doing that before then? Like, none of this makes any sense to me.
My theory is that Alex Grinch was doing too much. My theory is that he was installing too much, asking too much, requiring too much in terms of the complexity of the defense, trying to get too cute, trying to do too many different coverages, trying to do too many different setups, whatever. And taking him out of the equation forced Odom and Nua to streamline and simplify everything. And then on top of that, which they did before the UCLA game, they streamlined and simplified everything. And we saw it didn't necessarily make a difference. But then they got a couple weeks of bowl practices where, having streamlined and simplified and just gone more basic with everything, they could spend 2 weeks of saying, okay, we will just get good at doing these simple things. We will focus on the fundamentals and all of those kinds of things. And you saw it made a difference. Silas in the chat says that Taylor said that the player said that Taylor Mays taught them some new drills. So even just having somebody thinking differently, going into bowl games, in the bowl prep, saying, we're going to just try this different thing and see if this works. This is why I was frustrated with Alex Grinch at a certain point, was because it felt like he couldn't reach the players that he had in terms of getting them to connect with his scheme, with his preparation, with his mentality on defense or whatever. And so then the idea was, well, we're going to blame the players for just not getting it, and it's their fault, and that's that. Where a good coach recognizes these players aren't getting it. These players aren't connecting with this. Let's do this instead and see if this is the thing that they connect with. And maybe it's as simple as that's what Taylor Mays did. Maybe it's as simple as the small changes that they made were what got Bryson Shaw to suddenly understand how to actually effectively make a tackle. How to get more out of someone like Anthony Beavers, who wasn't really playing much this season and got his opportunity and had a big game, not just this season, but in seasons past. So
Well, Anthony Beavers, all I can remember his impact this past season was that he got burned on a touchdown or two.
Yeah.
Was it late in the Nevada game? He was burned over the top.
Well,
one
that
of
was
big
the issue,
plays.
right? Is that we would talk about like, man, USC safety play is really terrible. Like, but then they'd put Zion Branch and Anthony Beavers in, and it would be like, well, that doesn't solve your problem because those guys are getting beat even
Right.
worse. So it's about working with the guys that you have, and the guys that they had in this game, they got more out of them straight up. And then with somebody like Jacoby Covington, like Jacoby Covington was already USC's best corner from the get-go, in my opinion. And he dealt with injuries, and probably even when he was healthy, they weren't playing him exclusively. So sort of it's weird. But like Jacoby Covington doesn't surprise me at all. Jalen Smith, when Jacoby Covington wasn't on the field, Jalen Smith was already USC's best defender half of the time. So that doesn't necessarily surprise me either. But it's everybody else in that secondary, especially, who just looked more capable. And like Prophet Brown isn't in this list of the tackling, but Prophet Brown had a hell of a game outside of a couple of mishaps. But Prophet Brown wasn't getting playing time earlier in the season, despite dudes ahead of him who were playing significantly worse than anything we saw from him. So it's about what this staff figured out in terms of changing their whatever approach they were doing with the players. Clearly got more out of them, and it's got to give you a lot of hope for what the new staff, whether it includes holdovers or not, what the new staff is able to accomplish with a lot of the same players.
I think it also shows that how just fixing a little bit shows what the impact can be on the field. SC still gave up 28 points to Louisville. It's not like they held them to 10 points and were able to shut them down and all these different aspects of the game. They didn't do those things. You look at a lot of the numbers don't make SC's defense look like they had this incredible performance. Third downs, Louisville was at 50%. They picked up 2 of 3 fourth downs. They average 5.2 yards per play, which is sort of middle of the road, but like Isaac Arendo ran for a $161 and averaged 7 yards a pop. Like they were able to get yards and all those things. But the difference was SC was able to tackle. And I think that the result is fewer big plays from Louisville. We talked about it in the CarCast, that you look at the big chunk plays that Louisville had. They had, 6 gains of 10 yards or more, but only 2 of those were over 20 yards. They had 1 pass play of 20 plus yards, and that was exactly 20 yards, which was a short pass to Isaac Arendo, the running back, a little swing pass. So like this was a completely sort of different kind of game from the defense, where they just sort of kept things in front of them for the most part. They weren't perfect, but I think it's a good sign of like just improving your tackling can put you back to being a 28-point defense from being a 45-point defense. So now if you fix your tackling and your coverage, what's going to happen? You fix your tackling, your coverages, and your ability to get a pass rush, what can happen? And you just do these little building blocks on top of these things. Even with the same players, you can improve, 5, 6, 7 points a pop by doing every one of those steps, right?
Specific to this season, that defense just and like you said, it's not an elite defense. It just did some more little things correctly.
Not an elite USC defense.
No,
that's to put it lightly.
Yeah, to put it lightly, but effective enough.
Yeah.
You beat Utah. You comfortably beat Cal. You have a chance against UCLA, and you might even have a chance to upset Washington or Oregon, because
but this is the part that, like, everybody in the moment was frustrated when Lincoln Riley was saying, like, we're close, and I get why, obviously, but like, if the defense was just marginally competent for any of those games, SC is
It's a 10-win team.
SC is running away from the close games, and they're able to. Yeah, I think they are a 10-win team. Like they're at least they have that ability to, right? Like you look at Washington. Washington's going to the national championship, and I think the 3 teams that could have beaten them this year are Oregon, SC, and Texas were the ones that, I mean, yeah, they had their scares against what was it, ASU at home, sure.
Well, basically the whole end of the schedule was is Washington in trouble here?
Sure, but yeah, ASU, you know, scared them. Arizona scared them, yeah. But what I'm saying is, like, SC went tit for tat with them for 3.5 quarters until their last 2 drives of the game. SC couldn't score.
Yeah,
and
USC had a fumble, and that was that. They lost the possession, and it was over.
And if the defense would have just been competent in that game, and holds Washington to 1 fewer touchdown drive, or maybe 2, whatever it is, it's a completely different game. Maybe SC wins that game. I don't know, but like the game changes, right? Yeah. Like I think the Oregon game changes, but they probably still lose that one, whatever. But like,
well, they probably still lose those games. Yeah, they probably still lose to Notre Dame, Washington, and Oregon because those are teams.
But they're completely different on the eye test, right?
Yes, completely different on the eye test. Those are close losses that are competitive. Well, I mean, I don't know. Notre Dame, I put the Notre Dame game in its own category because that was a completely different kind of loss than
you can't win the game in which you turn the ball over 5 times.
That was actually the closest that USC was defensively to what we saw in the Holiday Bowl all season, was the Notre Dame game, which was funny because the offense was by far their worst. But the rest of the season, it looks more competitive.
The flip side of this, though, is, are we gassing up the ability for the defense to look marginally competent on a night where they still gave up 28 points? They did not hold Louisville to a scoreless quarter. So it's not like this was not like Louisville only scored in garbage time. It's not like SC responded with second half adjustments that shut the game down. No, they gave up 7 points in every single quarter.
Louisville didn't have their top receiver.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. Like, they didn't have their 2 best playmakers. And also, where's Louisville's offense ranking in the Pac-12? Like 8th, maybe? Like, that's not a knock on Louisville. That's a testament to how good the Pac-12 was this
right.
Past
but
year.
like, think about UCLA's offense all season. What UCLA's offense was all season, and what they did to this same defense.
Absolutely,
so it's everything when we're talking about the defense is grading on a scale, because as you said when we first started talking,
Cal scored 50 points
exactly. But as you said, it's still the scheme that was installed by Alex Grinch. It's still the full year of coaching under Grinch. It's still like there's only so much you could do to change what you were putting out on that field, and yet they did so in a way that was effective enough for USC to win a game comfortably,
right?
In a way that they had not done for a whole month.
Mm-hmm. And I think
not month, it 2 months.
Sure, but I think the Holiday Bowl was encouraging too, because I think there was a great tweet from RCFB, Reddit CFB, on today, Wednesday, I think it was, where it said, just remember, if your team lost your bowl games don't matter, and if they won, it was a sign of how your team has been validated this season, and they're going to have great offseason. Yeah. All the nonsense fan speak things, and I get it. At the same point, I think that like the Holiday Bowl, I think realistically looking at it, was a prime example of why I think we should just enjoy college football for what it is. The game, in the grand scheme of things, did not matter. I think the game has very little indication on what's going to happen in the future. I said it in the CarCast, and I'll say it again. I think that Joel Klatt's best little nugget in the entire game was him saying that was a USC team. That was a one-off team. We'll never see them again, because the defense, the defensive player, all the guys missing, and there's going to be new dudes coming in. There's new scheme, new all this stuff coming in and out. But what? Hold on. The point I'm trying to make is like the bowl games have been put into a spot where they don't matter anymore, and that's sad and that's depressing. And for the nostalgic, college football fans that we are, that grew up loving bowl games, that grew up loving the Holiday Bowl, that Holiday Bowl between Texas and Washington that was great when Major Applewhite came in, which was phenomenal. Like, you think of those old time games, right? Like, and those games that sort of shaped what we thought college football was, and you miss that, right? And I think this was a prime example of thinking like, let's not overthink it. Let's take things for what they are. And if you just take things for what they are, was the game enjoyable from a USC perspective? Absolutely. Was the team enjoyable from a USC perspective? Absolutely. Were there players that made plays? Yeah, absolutely. Was it perfect? No, but it's a bowl game. What does it really matter in this grand scheme of things in 2023? Not that much, which is why, like, just embrace it for what it is. Enjoy it for what it is. And I think it's a complete opposite of the Cotton Bowl last year, which I think had the weird pressures of it. For all intents and purposes, was the game that shouldn't have mattered and all those things. But A, it's a Cotton Bowl. It's a big money bowl. And B, it's USC going up against Tulane. And God forbid you ever lose to Tulane, right? Like, and the pressures that come with that, it comes from blowing a game in which SC should have won. All the defensive things are like a completely different vibe out of that game, a game that USC loses because of all the things that you just talked about there, right? But the Holiday Bowl was enjoyable. And yet I spent the month of December going into the Holiday Bowl like feeling nothing going into this thing, like not really caring. It was hard to put together a preview for the show because I'm like, I don't know how much people are going to be all in on it. We've talked about it before. Like, is SC fans, are they going to travel to the Holiday Bowl? Which every time we say this, we realize how stupid that is, because yes, the answer is yes. You're all addicted. You all can't avoid it. The 2019 season, everybody hated that Mike Bone didn't fire Clay Helton, and yet SC outnumbered Iowa fans in the Holiday Bowl, and we're absolutely there and excited to be there. The same case was this past week, right? Like, everyone who we know that has gone has raved about like their time going to the game and enjoying it and all this. For what it was good. And for a season that was an unmitigated disaster, it's kind of nice just having SC having a game that you can just feel good about, even if in the grand scheme of things it probably means nothing. Who cares?
Here's the problem. The Tulane game, the Cotton Bowl, did mean something, because that game told us all what was clear is that the defense was a problem, and that Alex Grinch should have been fired after it. And even though you and I were on here saying like we understand why he's not going to get fired, he should be.
Right.
Based on what we saw in that game, based on the demeanor of that game. Which is why I'm not going to sit here and say that this game means nothing, because people can't complain that bowls mean nothing and then also turn around and say, well, also bowls mean nothing. Like, you can't have it both ways.
It's a bad thing that it means nothing.
No. It means something, because guess what? USC came out there with a bunch of dudes who were eager to play football in Cardinal and Gold for that coaching staff, for each other,
with nothing to lose.
Who had nothing to lose, who were enthusiastic and eager and had the right mentality. They prepared well, obviously, which are all things that we needed to see after this season, because they gave up ahead of the UCLA game. That was what was the most demoralizing thing about losing to UCLA? It was the vibe. It was we had been able to say for weeks before that, this defense is god awful. This team is just in its own thing, but they are at least out there trying. They're at least out there fighting. Like, you can see that the team has not given up quite yet. And then that was no longer the case. They absolutely gave up. UCLA was an absolute disaster. They didn't prepare well. They didn't have the right mentality during the game, all of that. So to see them prove that was the fluke, not that was the inevitability and that's the way it was going to be, that this team could rally around each other and could understand what playing for each other and what preparing right looks like. All of that does matter. Does it mean that USC is going to have a good season next year? No, not on its own. It's its own thing, but it's its own nugget of truth that does matter. That fight still exists in this group of players. That, yes, a lot of them won't be there, but the majority of them will be back, and you need them to be able to point back to that experience for an example of, this is how we rally together. And after the game, the messaging from dudes was, we're a team. We came together as a team. People talked about how the preparation for the Holiday Bowl was some of the best team building, the tightest that they've been the whole time. Like, you can then turn around in spring ball, in fall camp, and say, remember what it felt like last December when we were getting ready for the holiday? Remember how we rallied together? We need to do that again now. We need to reconnect with that. There's immense value in that. So I'm not going to diminish what a victory that was the most fun I had watching USC all year, literally all year, because I couldn't even really enjoy too much the Stanford or Nevada or San Jose State games, because there was so much pressure and so much expectation of what does this mean for going forward, all that kind of stuff. Like, they went out there, they balled out, they had fun. I had fun watching them. And I think the lessons that they learned, you can take forward and see what comes of it.
Yeah, West Texas Mike in the chat says, I didn't want to see SC play again, like after Oregon, but was incredibly pleasantly surprised by the Holiday Bowl. Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to put it. And I think we're in agreement here, right? Like, when I say the game doesn't matter, I mostly am talking about like the literal things that you see on the field, the lineup, the maybe the plays you saw, the personnel, like all those things sort of don't necessarily matter. Whether or not SC won or lost this doesn't necessarily matter in the grand scheme of things for the trajectory of what the program is. That's what I mean when I say it doesn't matter. And it was kind of nice to just like enjoy a game without any stakes that way. But you're right. Like, when you don't have the stakes, how are, like, what's that saying that people's true character is revealed when no one's watching, or whatever it is? What's whatever that saying is? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Yeah.
And like, I feel like it's kind of this thing of like, well, when you have no stakes, like who are you going to be? And SC took the opportunity to use this as a month to get better. And I think that, yeah, you're right. I think that's something to, feel good about going into the off season, when in reality, there was no reason to give a damn about this game. No reason to try. No reason to do all those things. They went 1-5 in their last 6 games. They nearly blew the ones before that. They pretty much fired most of the defensive coaching staff. They didn't have all these different players. Yeah, theoretically, there was no reason to dig in. SC did, and they had a great performance from Miller Moss. Connor Morissette tweeted that when he was under pressure against Louisville in the Holiday Bowl, he completed 5 of 7 throws for $149, 3 touchdowns, and against the blitz, he was 10 of 11 for 210, which is just fantastic. So
it's a good reminder that the comp for Miller Moss coming out of high school was Drew Brees.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't necessarily a physical comp, although it's not totally off base, because he doesn't have the big arm that you sort of want to look for prototypically. What he did have was the stuff up here, the processing power, the cool, calm collectedness in the pocket, all of that kind of stuff. But it's always interesting to see whether or not that translates to the college game, where things speed up a hell of a lot faster. It's a lot easier in high school when everything is just, the competition you're playing against is just not it. To see Miller do that in that game under those circumstances was the single most impressive thing that I had seen. I think there will be a lot of conversations about USC in the quarterback position that, like I said before, is heavily complicated by Miller Moss looking that good. But he we've had some questions about his arm strength and all of the things that he put out there, but you can deal with a dude not having the biggest arm in the country if he processes as quickly as Miller Moss did in that game, makes decisions as aptly as Miller Moss did in that game, and handles pressure the way he did in that game. And that is why I'm incredibly encouraged by everything that Miller Moss did as a quarterback and also as a leader, because he very clearly rallied the offense around him and got them believing in him too. That's in a really encouraging way. So yeah, big props to Miller Moss.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of stuff to get to still on the Holiday Bowl, including over under. We had an over under big finale that I'm super excited to get to unveil our champion, our over under champion this year. So let's get into it.
So you're going over. I'm feeling bold. Give me that over.
I'll go under. I got to take an under here. I got 3 unders to take. I'm going to do an under here.
All right. Let's start with the pre-game standings for us. I was 39 and 33. You were 35 and 37. Your first over under of the Holiday Bowl was over under 12 and a half. Zachariah Branch and Deuce Robinson catches. I took the under, locks you into the over. It was under, and it was way under. It was 3. They had 3 for 53 yards and a touchdown, including a 44-yard touchdown catch from Deuce Robinson.
I just didn't foresee Mekhi Lemon being the star, and Jacoby Lane popping up in the second half too, and being the dude. That was unexpected. So yeah,
absolutely. Next one, I said over under 69% for USC's red zone rates. Louisville was the number 1 red zone defense in the country. You took the under, locks me into the over. It was under. Alicia, USC was at 60%, which sounds terrible. 3 of 5, but it's easy to go 3 of 5 when you miss a field goal and you have an interception. Miller Moss's one big mistake in the game was an interception in the red zone. So the Trojans went 3 of 5.
Yeah, Miller Moss saved my over under on this one.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, he saved you from true embarrassment. I don't want to rub it in too much, but next one, over under 32 and a half Miller Moss pass attempts. You said I took the over. I want to say I said just slightly. At least it was just slightly. 33. What a line. What a line for you.
I want to institute a new thing. I want to institute a new over-under policy for next season. I want us to stop doing the 0.5s. I want us to put full round numbers.
Wow.
And if your line is the actual, then you get a point as well. The person who set the line.
Okay, but then what is it? So if you would have said 33,
If I had said 33
and I said over,
and it
then
was 33, you don't get the point. I get the point. Because I set the line.
I like that.
If it's 32 or if it's 34,
that.
then you get the over under. But if I get it spot on, I get the point.
I like that.
Right?
I like that.
Yeah.
Counterpoint. How do we score that for the RoT's at home? Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know.
But for us, I think it's interesting.
We'll workshop it. We've got 9 months.
Irvine Cattle Ranch says 2 points. I think 2 points would be
there. You go.
Would be valid for that. Yeah, it was just over. I get the over. Next one was I said over under 39.5 USC's third down rate. You took the under. Locks me into the over. It was over. The Trojans on third down were actually well over. They were at 60%. 60% in the red zone, 60% on third down. 6 of 10, which is phenomenal. That's a good rate to have.
This is the single most impressive stat from the game. Because Louisville's defense, their third down defense was outstanding all season long.
6th in the country.
This to me is a credit to Miller Moss navigating that offense on third down.
And there was a drop on third down.
There was a third down drop. Yeah. So it could have been even higher.
Yeah. Good point there. Your last over under was 39.4 for Louisville's third down rate. Basically the same line, just the other way. I took the over, locks you into the under. It was over. Louisville was at 50%, 6 of 12. 6 of 12. Didn't matter. SC still held them to 28 points and got the win by 14. But yeah, over.
Yeah, that's less of a surprising thing.
Last one. I said over under 388.5 Jack Plummer passing yards. Of course, that was his season high against BC was 388 yards that he had for the Cards back earlier in the year. He threw 406 yards with the Cal Bears a year ago at the Coliseum against the Trojans. You really took a punt on this one and took the over. I took the under, and Bob's your uncle. It was way under. It was
under twice over.
It was way under. He had $141.
See, the thing is, my strategy for over under this game was pick against USC in every category, and that worked out well for USC and not for me.
Yeah.
Reverse psychology, baby.
There we go. All right. Scoreboard for the week. I went 5-1. You went 1-5. A true jiggle bagging at the hands of me. And for the season, I am your over-under champion. 44-34. You went 36-42. What do you have to say for yourself?
I will come back next year stronger. You will never see anyone fight as hard as I will to regain the crown of over-under champion.
Yeah. Do you need to put out that Lynn Swan statement with all the buzzwords in it?
Yeah, I'll get on ChatGPT right now and have it write up a commitment.
Commitment to excellence or whatever.
To excellence, yeah.
All right. What did you guys, the RoT's, do? Who are the weekly leaders?
Like West Texas Mike says, this season doesn't count. USC was lame.
Hey, is this the new the new COVID year?
Yes.
Yeah. We had a bunch of people went 5-1, 28 pitch. Scott Cox, LA Fred, Ryan from Arizona, and also Ryan in Sun Devil country. Apparently, there's 2 Ryans.
Check the count, man.
They're both in Arizona. You know, that Arizona vote, you never can trust it. You know, I don't know. All right. Who won for the year? Well, here's who finished second. G-Pat. The record of 49-29. Well done, G-Pat. You did well. Tied for third on the podium, Britt from Irvine, Matt and Rancho, Scott Cox, and Trevor M. Well done. Record of 47-31. But Alicia, the winner of the 2023 Reign of Troy over-under competition, Vince in San Diego.
Hey!
Well done. 52-26. A 3-point win for the season. Dominant win for Vince in San Diego. Southern Damascus, South Detroit, San Dimas, wherever he's from. There's a Carmen San Diego reference that I could have made that I'm just not going to make.
That's fine.
Yeah, well done, Vince. That's going to wrap up over under for us for the year, and all of that. Alicia, before we wrap this up and go to the mailbag, our predictions for the game. You said Louisville 30, USC 20. I said Louisville 27, SC 17. We both predicted 10-point USC losses. The Trojans won by 14.
I did not think USC's offense was going to be able to function. I thought the offensive line would be a mess, and Miller Moss would look like he did in the second half against Stanford because of it. When USC scored 0 points in the second half.
Instead, he looked
pretty good.
Yeah, they did. Yes.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the mailbag and wrap this thing up, shall we?
You've got mail.
All right, the mailbag. Let's go to the mailbag. Alicia, let's start with voicemails we've got. Don't have a rant line. Didn't get that many calls. First call we want to play is Greg in DC.
This is Greg from DC. I was there at the Holiday Bowl. Went with my dad, who's the USC alum. Fight on. We are so back. Miller Moss is QB1. Love it. Love the show.
Thanks for the call, Greg. He's all in. He's all in on Big Miller Moss.
I think a lot of people are all in on Big Miller Moss. I think he really proved himself in that game, and I think a lot more people are excited about the prospect of him coming in as QB1 in 2024 if that's the way it all shakes out. My
only concern about the Miller Moss thing, we're gonna get questions about Miller Moss in mailbags. Maybe I'll save it. I'll save it for that. Let's get to David Orange County's call.
Radio Troy Radio. What's up? This is Dave in Orange County. Man, it's been a fortnight since I've called. There's been built up so much frustration with this season, so much frustration with this defense, so much frustration with just not coming out according to plan. Expectations are kind of getting to me. It's just so negative, so negative. I can't spill out this negativity on Radio Troy Radio. And then the Holiday Bowl. Expectations completely out the window. Man, we're going to get beat tonight, I kept saying today. I'm going to watch. I'll represent, but, my expectations are so low. And this just team came out and balled. Miller Moss doing some good stuff. 6 touchdowns. I like it. Accuracy was a little off, but he was a little YOLO, a little Matt Finkish against Utah a couple years ago, where he just trusted your receivers, let those guys go out and get it. I'd like to see a little bit of ball placement here, leading receivers, not throwing behind receivers, not just, leaving them out to dry. But, hey, man, for your first start, 6 touchdowns, can't beat that with a baseball bat, right? Defense, this is where I'm talking. This is what I'm talking about. This is what we had hoped for all season. Defense wasn't great. Defense wasn't shut down. But defense just made it hard for the other offense, for the little offense, to just do what they wanted to do. Yeah, they drove down the field. But they had to get to third down, had to get nothing really over 20 yards, very rarely anything over 20 yards. That's the kind of defense that I was hoping for all season long. That kind of defense mixed with King Williams' offense, man, we would have, what could have been. But hey, this is going to be great for recruiting. It's going to be great for the transfer portal. Get a little confidence back in this USC squad. Get a little confidence back about what's going on and what Lincoln Riley is building in LA. I don't know why a quarterback would ever want to leave. It make a Miller Moss throw for 6 touchdowns and 371 yards. Maybe we could do with a really, really good quarterback. Hats off to the guys. Loved watching you play. Loved watching this Rose Bowl. Can't wait till next season. Fight out.
Thanks for the call, Dave. As always, I think the great point about the defense there is that they made it hard on Louisville. They made them earn every yard. And I think that's the least you could ask for from the defense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was just that little bit more of you weren't a swinging door of a defense. There was actual resistance that you had to go through.
Right.
And so at times it might not have been more resistance than styrofoam, but at least it was there. At least it was present.
Right.
So
there were peanuts in the box.
yeah, you'll take that after watching what we watched for the last 2 years defensively. But I agree with Dave too about Miller Moss. Like I think that there is a chance that this is a Matt Fink YOLO ball situation. I think that's a possibility. But the big difference here is that Lincoln Riley is the one choosing the quarterback. Lincoln Riley is the one developing the quarterback. Unlike in the Matt Fink situation, unlike in the Keaton Slovis situation, where you maybe had a quarterback who doesn't have the prototypical NFL skill set, and then was in an offense that was never going to elevate him beyond what he was going to be. The limitations of the offensive coordinator were always part of the limitations of the quarterback. And in this case, knowing what we know about Lincoln Riley's offense, if Riley ultimately determines that Miller Moss has what it takes to be his starting quarterback, I'm very confident that Miller Moss can successfully navigate USC's offense for 2024 or beyond, simply on what he showed in that game, that he understands the scheme, he understands what's asked of him by Lincoln Riley. He can make enough of the throws, and most importantly, what we've already talked about, he can navigate the pocket, he can process quickly, he can get the ball out, he can take what's there, he can, be a little bit more bold if he needs to be at times, but those things can work within the Lincoln Riley offense. You don't have to have the number 1 draft pick for this offense to work.
Yeah, and we had a question from Kenny in the chat. By the way, can everybody in the chat give a big happy birthday to our friend Kenny Martin?
Happy birthday, Kenny!
It's Kenny's birthday this week, so big ups to Kenny. Happy birthday, buddy. Kenny in the chat said, do you see Miller Moss as the future, or does he have that Keaton feel? I know there were comments in the middle of the game about the idea of the you talked about the Matt Fink thing, right? The Matt Fink YOLO ball game. I think there was an element of that in terms of like you've got nothing to lose, so just F it, let it rip. And I think there was some of that from Miller Moss, absolutely. But to me, this is less Keaton, and I do see elements of Jackson Dart against Washington State and Jack Sears against ASU. Not on a very literal level, but I think that in terms of the fan-based reaction, I think it shows that I think fans always are looking for a reason to buy in, right? Like,
oh yes,
that's what you're doing. Like that's why you love sports, right? Like you just want a reason to buy. You just need a little bit. You just need a little bit of reason to buy in. You're all in, right? And there's so many people that are all in on Miller Moss because of the performance, and I get it. I just would say, take a deep breath. I think Miller Moss looked fantastic, and if he ends up being the guy, then he ends up being the guy. Great. But also there were people who thought that Jack Sears was going to be the guy after that ASU game that he started, and he's never been seen since, right? Mm-hmm. Like, let's just take everything for what it's worth. Miller Moss did exactly what he could have dreamed of doing, and he was fantastic, and I think he earned every bit of his opportunity in the spring to go win the job, whether or not Will Howard or whoever else comes in as a transfer. Miller Moss earned his spot to go fight them off, to scare them off, all those things. More power to him, and that's exactly what you want to see out of a quarterback, especially someone who wears his heart on his sleeve and would live and die for SC and the Cardinal and gold, right? Like,
That's why
that's what you want to see.
I am officially, and not that I would have been rooting against him before, I certainly wasn't, but I am officially rooting hard for Miller Moss to go through the rest of the offseason and win that job.
Yeah.
Because Miller Moss, the story is great. The mentality is great. Everything that Lincoln Riley said about wanting players who want to be all about USC, like you don't get a better example of that than Miller Moss.
Yes.
So to have him be the one that comes through and succeeds, that's my best case scenario at this point for the USC quarterback.
Right.
But I'm extremely open. USC needs to bring in a transfer.
Yeah,
USC needs to have a competition. USC needs,
from a numbers points,
Yes.
they have to at least bring in a
Yes.
transfer, whether it is a Will Howard level or a Mo Hassan level. They have to bring in a transfer. But I think you made the great point too of like you can talk about Keaton Slovis, you can talk about Jackson Dart, you can talk about Jack Sears, all the guys who had like one-off or like short little stints of like really good play. Matt Fink, the one big game, right? But the difference is, like you said, Lincoln Riley is calling the shots here, and Lincoln Riley hasn't had a bad quarterback ever. He's going to make sure that the situation is going to work out.
Miller also, I mean, we keep comparing Fink to Miller Moss. Miller Moss has a better arm than Matt Fink did.
Oh no,
like,
1,000%.
So I just want to make that clear.
Yes, it's not even close.
But there's a when you've been watching people like Caleb Williams throw the ball.
I do not think for a second that he is, Miller Moss plays like Matt Fink. It's like I said, the having nothing to lose idea of Matt Fink that is similar.
Yes.
But last little point before we get to the last little point about Kenny, Kenny's question about Keaton Slovis. I will say this until I'm blue in the face, and maybe I know that this makes me look like a crazy person. I still think that Keaton Slovis was a damn good quarterback in 2019. Something happened in the offseason. And people noticed that there was a lack of velo in 2020. I don't know if it was the injury from the Iowa game, if that's what happened in the Holiday Bowl, that's what screwed him up. And he was never the same. But like, go watch him in 2019. He was damn good. That Notre Dame game, the game that SC lost, I thought Keaton Slovis looked so damn good in that game. Like, he looked really, really good. And then he gets hurt in the Holiday Bowl, and he was never the same since. Ever. And so, and if Miller Moss can be 2019 Keaton Slovis, SC is going to win a ton of games with him.
Yep.
But you got to get there. All right. We got to give a bunch of thank yous. Alex with the big super chat coming through in the clutch as always. Thank you. You support the show, and we greatly appreciate you. And every single week, Alex is the best. Guy in the chat with the super chat as well. Thank you.
Cheers,
Mr. Smithson. And then Hokey P, top Trojan fan, just coming in here with like the biggest super chat we've ever gotten in our lives.
My eyes bugged out.
Jeez.
Thank you. We're glad to have you in here. That's way too generous, but you're top Trojan fan indeed.
Yeah, he's one of the true OGs. Been listening to us literally since years, like
Feels
a decade.
from the beginning.
Yeah. Just about from the beginning. We met him at the Texas meetup before the Texas game in 2017. Grand old time. All right. Also got to give a big shout out, happy anniversary to Irvine Cattle Ranch. He says it's our 26th wedding anniversary. Congrats to me for having a wonderful bride. Yeah.
Congrats to you.
Congratulations.
That's a huge achievement. You got 25 years on us. So, and we hope to be there too.
24 and a half.
24 and a half.
We've been married that long enough that we can't even remember when we got married.
We've been married 1 year and a half.
Boy.
1.5 years.
1 and 2/3 years.
Is it 2/3 years?
2/3 years. Yeah. Long time. Yeah.
That's right. It's only okay. Yeah.
All right. SJ in the chat says, what made Taj Washington so effective? He was not the biggest or the fastest, but he always showed up. Yeah, I think the interesting thing is, like, I've seen, we talked about it in the CarCast, like there was the comment from Equity Bruin on Twitter about how, like, he's the most non-USC receiver of all time. And you talked about it like it's Taj Washington slander.
Taj Washington slander, man.
But like, you understand what he means,
yes,
right?
He's not the prototypical.
He's not Michael Pittman in terms of like physical specimen, right?
Yeah.
But I think the interesting thing about Taj Washington is, like, yeah, he's not the biggest or the fastest, but like, he led the country in like 40-yard pass catches.
Yeah.
So like, he what does make him? I don't know what makes him effective. He just finds a way to do it. Like, I don't know, because he also he had the dropsies. So like, he's not the fastest guy, but he's just someone who I think just has a little bit of savviness in his game. Someone who's coachable, who does all the right things, a la Deontay Burnett, that just finds a way to get in the right spot usually.
He's a really good reminder that there's more to playing receiver than just being very big or very fast.
Yeah.
There's number one, a feel for space on the field. There's route running and the reliability of your route running. There's sort of an understanding with the quarterback that has to get built, that trust that I think Taj Washington has definitely earned. And also ability to manipulate a defender. You know, there's a reason that Taj Washington was able to get free for those big catches, because he knew how to get one over on a corner, or beat a guy with a move, or even though he's not going to burn you with his speed alone, he has to do it with his route running, with his feel for space on the field. Like, those are the elements that take a receiver beyond their physical attributes. And I think Taj Washington is a beautiful example of that ability. So
yeah,
it's USC is going to miss him. USC needs to find somebody who can be that kind of guy. And I think that one of the really encouraging things about the Holiday Bowl is that Makai Lemon looked a little bit like he might be something of that kind of, if Makai Lemon becomes your Taj Washington, for lack of a better word, replacement, then you're doing pretty
certainly
well.
A high rank recruit too. Makai Lemon out of Los Alamitos. Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting to see how SC tries to replace him, because he is just he like, did SC replace Deontay Burnett? I don't exactly know, because Deontay Burnett left, and then the receiving core after that sort of had guys that were just sort of different, right? Like, guy in the chat says, Riley won a bowl game. What is his record now in his career in bowl games? So he is now 2-4, technically. He's lost the Rose Bowl, lost the Orange Bowl, lost the Peach Bowl, won the Cotton Bowl, lost last year's Cotton Bowl at SC, and then won this past year's Holiday Bowl. However, is this cherry picking? Maybe, but please understand the context in which I'm saying this. I think it's fair to say that he's 2-1 in bowl games, and he's 0-3 in playoff game. Like, yes. I think there's a difference there. This was the first bowl game that he's had that has not been a New Year's Six bowl, and it's not been a playoff game. So in 2021 he coached Oklahoma to the Alamo Bowl, but he did not participate in the Alamo Bowl because he left to come to SC in 2021. But this was the first time he was in a December bowl game for all intents and purposes, right? And he thoroughly out coached what's his face from Louisville? What it's Brom. Yeah. Yeah, and SC looked well coached, absolutely, in this game, right? Like that's all the things that we've talked about, right? It's been come back to coaching, right?
I just think
there's a separation between the playoff games and the bowl games. Not to say that the bowl games matter more, they don't. They certainly do not matter more. But I think there's a difference in getting jiggle bagged in a bowl game versus winning or losing. Getting jiggle bagged in a playoff game versus winning or losing a bowl game.
Outside of the Cotton Bowl loss, the one to Tulane, his other 3 losses in bowl games were to Kirby Smart, Nick Saban, and arguably the greatest college football team this century.
You know what I love?
With Joe Burrow at the helm.
I love that it's Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, and no one's ever going to say
and Ed Orgeron. No.
It's always and Joe Burrow and Joe Brady.
Lost to Joe Burrow. Yeah. Because
it wasn't Ed Orgeron. Yeah. No. Yeah. Like
I'm just. He needs to prove. See, and this is the thing that
he needs to get better in playoff games. Absolutely,
but coaches like Jim Harbaugh, Ryan Day, there's a bunch of dudes out there who are very good to elite coaches who are trying to put themselves up there with. I mean, Kirby Smart was in this category up until a couple of years ago. Of can they compete with Saban or Dabo Swinney and now Kirby Smart? Lincoln is still in that category of we don't know if he's capable of beating those level of coaches for a national title.
Nobody is.
But again, there's only like 2 of them. So
this is the thing. Like I saw the stat posted of Nick Saban in January is 10-7 in Alabama. And Pete Carroll at USC in January was 6-1.
Pete wasn't playing.
I understand it, but also, this is a prime example of if you're in the playoff and only playing good teams, someone's got to lose. Somebody's got to lose. Alabama's gonna lose a bunch of games when they only play teams that are ranked number 1 or 2 in the country, right? Like, yes, they're gonna lose because somebody has to, right? This is why, somebody is going to lose in the Big Ten and the SEC next year with all these teams moving there, right? If there was a super league in soccer, somebody would have to lose, right? I don't think it's a good comparison because Pete Carroll, the knock on SC was not the knock on SC, but people were frustrated that SC was always playing in the Rose Bowl against a team from the Big Ten who they could just lily warp, like Penn State and Michigan and Illinois. Outside of that Michigan team in 2006 that was really good, the Illinois team was nowhere close, right? No. Like that SC was always going to absolutely take them to the woodshed in that game, right?
And that's the frustrating thing about that era of college football and USC football specifically is we never got to see those teams. We never got to see what Pete Carroll could have done in a 14 playoff.
Yeah.
I suspect he would have just killed it. He would have been absolutely
his record
nuts.
at SC, if he would have played in the playoff, probably would have ended up like 10-7 also.
Yeah, because he would have lost. Because Saban and Dabo went back and forth. It's difficult to win these playoff games, and it takes time to get the right compilation of team that gets you over the hump. The hope for USC is that Lincoln Riley is capable of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
At this stage in his career, he hasn't gotten over that hump. He's also, Nick Saban has 20 years on him. So I don't know.
Yeah. Greg has the last question. Would you rather get dumped in a bucket of mayo or a bucket of eggnog? I don't think I've seen a question that I want to answer less than this.
This is an easy answer. The answer is eggnog. I would rather get dunked with eggnog, and this is why. Eggnog is designed to be drinking, to be drank, to be drinking. My issue with
Drinking?
eggnog, I'm honestly not sure the correct what
Well,
the correct
you're
usage.
the Latin
I
major.
know. I should know these. Well, I don't know if is drink or drinking a Latin root. I don't think
I don't know.
so.
I just
Somehow
wanted
I
to
think
throw
that
that in there.
it feels a little bit Germanic, maybe.
Is it Aramaic?
Maybe.
I'm just
Who the hell
throwing
knows?
languages out at this point.
Either way, I like eggnog. My issue with eggnog is I only ever want to have 2 or 3 sips of eggnog before I'm done. It's just so rich. But if you get dunked, if it gets dunked on you, you get some dripping in your mouth. It's a pleasant, thing. You can deal with it.
Jake, don't do this. Jake, don't do it.
with mayo is meant to be like a condiment on a sandwich. It's not, there's no eating mayo on its own is not it. So yes, I'd rather do eggnog. I'm just gonna let myself out now.
I see what you're saying. Eggnog is a liquid, and mayo isn't exactly viscous.
Yeah.
And I agree, but either one of them, I need to be hosed down with like the hose that they use with the elephants. Like, I love mayo. I think it's a great condiment. It is the best condiment. Mayo on fries, wonderful. Mayo on the outside of a grilled cheese, wonderful. Mayo on a sandwich, magnificent. I love me some mayo. But eating it or tasting it or touching it, any of those things, no. I love ketchup, but I wouldn't want to be dumped in ketchup either. But eggnog, though, like, I think is an absolute menace to society. I think it is immoral to drink eggnog. I think it is horrendous. Any sort of milk drink is a black mark on human existence. And so my gut is to say that eggnog is the one that I wouldn't want remotely touching me ever. But I think you're right in that it's a liquid and you can just wash it off easier.
Yeah. Yeah. For the record, it is drank. The correct usage is drank. And the verb and noun are both from Middle English, from the Old English drinken, akin to Old High German trinken. So I was sort of right about the Germanic potential Old English roots of it, not Latin.
All right.
So
West Texas Mike says we need to end the show.
Let's go have some eggnog.
Oh, God. All right. By the way, I have Lincoln Riley's I have his Wikipedia page up. You know what high school he went to?
Is it Muleshoe?
Muleshoe.
Muleshoe is the town
Muleshoe.
he's from. So
Muleshoe.
Muleshoe.
Say that 10 times fast.
Lubbock.
Yeah. All right. We'll be back next week to talk more about USC, probably more about the transfer portal, more about whatever else is there. Give us your emails, randtroy@fanside.com. Give us your phone numbers. Give us your voicemails, 818-643-7227. We'll be back then next week. So we'll be talking. You know how to reach us, all those things. Thanks as always for listening to us. Thanks again to everybody who supports the show. Just being here, hearing our voice say this means that you support the show, and we love you for that. We couldn't do this without you. You're the best. So until then, we will see you.
See ya.
See ya.